My name is Lena Shelley. I was born 7/27/34. I was born in Black Oak, Arkansas, out of Fayetteville, about 10 miles in the country.
And this interview is for the Farmington Oral History Project, and we just want to verify that we have your permission to use this interview.
Yes, you have my permission.
Thank you. Tell me about your parents.
My mother passed away when I was 12 years old, and I didn't know my father. I know he's Randall Harbison, but I didn't know him.
And your mom's name?
Oh, my mom's name was Nana Tadlock.
Okay. And did you have any siblings?
I have no siblings.
Tell me about what it was like for you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in around Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Okay. What are your earliest memories of the Farmington community?
When we moved to Farmington, there wasn't a lot. All farmland. Where South Winds is, that was all field cattle. And the golf course was a hay field. My husband hauled hay in that field. But one good grocery store, Collins and Davis, was the grocery store in Farmington, really. No place to eat, no restaurants.
Tell me about your husband and why you guys decided to move into the Farmington area, and when did you move?
My husband grew up in Farmington, Kenneth Shelley, and I didn't like federal schools. I wanted my boys in a smaller school. So we decided we would move to Farmington in 1970.
And what kind of business was your husband in?
My husband was a truck driver.
Tell me about the stores and businesses you remember in Farmington when you first moved here.
Colin and Davis grocery store is really about all I remember as far as stores. And I can't remember, at one time there was a drive-in, but I can't remember when in Farmington.
Tell me about what it was like for your kids to send your kids to school in Farmington.
When my kids in school in Farmington was so good. We knew all their friends, the teachers, principal. We knew all of them, and it was so much nicer than Fayetteville.
Who were your kids and who were some of their friends?
Oh, Steve Shelley, Greg Oxford, James Lewis, Gary Cooper, Bill Cooper. I can't remember a lot of them.
And who are the rest of your boys? You had that many boys?
My other son is Steve Shelley, and it's hard to remember. I know Danny Absher was a friend of his, and Richard Anderson, and Steve Drain.
Tell me about where y'all lived when you moved to Farmington.
When we moved to Farmington, we were right almost on 62. We turned off of 170, the road sharp back to the left, and we lived in the first house on the right. We lived there 2 years. And then we bought the house out here. In 72, we moved out here in the country.
And how long have you lived here? The whole time?
Since 1972. In April, we moved.
What are some of the memories you have since you've moved to the Farmington area?
Oh, the ball games. Both my boys played all sports, and I enjoyed all their ball games. I met so many people, and Farmington is a very friendly town. And of course, now Edna and Roland Davis, Roland and my husband were good fishing buddies. And things like that, we spent about every weekend on Beaver Lake with Gerald and Joanne Lewis and their 3 boys.
Well, when you first moved out to Farmington area, what did you and your husband do for fun?
Just went to ball games, things with the kids. And that was about it. I worked.
Tell me about that. Where'd you work?
I worked at Kearney Electric. It's in Fayetteville, down south of Fayetteville. It's we made it like electrical equipment for high-line wires, high lines, and we worked, 8 hours a day every day, but our biggest thing was a hurricane come into Florida, Texas, the Carolinas, and tear up all their electricity, and we would work to get their lights back on. The department I worked in we made fuse links. But the only thing, more companies made those than we did, and they would order from each company. And the first company that got their equipment, they took it, they canceled the other orders. So we would work sometimes, always 6 days a week, sometimes 7, 10, 12 hours a day. That didn't leave much time for me to do anything.
When you first moved here in the Farmington area, what did your kids do for fun?
Played ball.
Tell me more.
That's about it. They were young. There was a skating rink halfway to Fayetteville, and they did roller skate. That was my husband's big thing when we were young. We skated every time the rink was open. And then go have sleepovers, and they'd camp out.
Tell me about some of the people you first met when you moved out to Farmington, some of the friendships you made.
Well, the Lewises was the biggest friendship we had. And of course, Edna and Roland. And and then we met several people at the ball games. Chester and Lorraine Stevens was one of my favorite. Their boys, Wesley played ball. And Reba, their daughter, was cheerleader. And they were good friends. And really, right now, I can't hardly remember
Where did you guys go to church if you did go?
Um, Farmington, it was Farmington Baptist. Now it's Main Street Baptist.
Who were some of the people and preachers you remember there over the years?
Well, the Stevens went there, and now Bonnie Beeks, her son is our pastor, and she was going to another church, and it closed till she started coming to our church, and she's a good member now. And Earl and Virginia Osborne, they are very good friends from the church. She's 89 and he's 96 now. Wanda Spears, Wanda was in Chester. Wanda and Russell were at church. They were friends.
Do you ever remember going to many events in Farmington besides school stuff? Like, did you ever go to those annual festivals they used to have?
No, I don't remember any of them.
Did you ever go to like the fireman's breakfast?
No, never did. Now I've gone to antique car shows.
Tell me about those.
And it was just all these old cars. Senior Center had an antique car show in July. And it's just seeing the old cars, talking to the people.
What do you know about the senior center, like how it got started? Do you know any of that story?
It was before I was still working, and it started, I think, in the city hall. Now, they didn't have a kitchen, and there's a little restaurant across from Appletown, and at one time they rented that and cooked meals for Farmington, Prairie Grove, and Lincoln. But then Farmington got their own kitchen. And it's good food. In fact, when I retired in 1996, that's when I started going. They were, Virginia Parsley was teaching clog dancing. So I got my shoes and I clogged. I still have them. And there was months back, it's been probably 6 years ago. Tina, the director, and I did most of the cooking. We had breakfast every Saturday morning for a fundraiser. And I enjoy going over there and eating, especially, well, Tuesday we have music, which is good. And Thursday, I like to go, because they play bingo and then pitch. I don't do either one, but in between I visit.
How important is that senior center for the community?
Very important. It's, the Meals on Wheels now is really something. I know we had one, Frank Parsley, delivered meals, and he always come back late. And he said, you know, I'm the only person some of these people see and they want to visit. And he said, I just talked to him a little bit. And it's, for a lot of them, you know, that be about the only meal. I know a friend of mine, Lena Giles, she got meals, and I would ask her about them. And a lot of times, it would be more than she could eat for lunch, and so she'd have her lunch and dinner meal both. And I always questioned her about the quality, and she said, of course, some meals are better than others, but they're all good.
So you think that's important?
Oh, I think that's very important. I might even someday need them.
What do you remember about the town, how it went from being just one or two little stores here and there to so many things? Can you remember over the years how that grew?
Not really. Most of the stores have gone out. Since neighborhood market went in, that took everything. And Collins and Davis, now they sold groceries on credit. They did a big business.
What was it like in those days shopping at the little country store like that? Tell me what you remember about it.
Well, I didn't shop there that much, but it was always nice to run in. You need something, just run in and pick it up. But I didn't shop there. I won't charge groceries. I don't, so I just bought them usually in town on my way home from work.
Did you ever know the postmaster?
Uh,
The Broyles?
no, not the Broyles. I didn't know any of the Broyles. I knew my first one I knew was Buddy Elkins.
Buddy Elkins. Tell me about Buddy.
I liked Buddy. He was friendly. After I had my first granddaughter, he called me Grandma. In fact, he had an aneurysm, just died real sudden. Kenneth was in the post office about a couple of weeks before he passed away, and he said, "Tell Grandma hi." I was Grandma.
What are some other stories you remember about Farmington and just the community and the people?
Not really any. I didn't, till we moved out here, I didn't know that much about it. Only the problems they had at Halloween, things like that.
What are you talking about? What are those?
Well, like, Lance Phillips had a grocery store, and everybody aggravated him and turning over outhouses. In fact, when we moved to Farmington, it wasn't too long after we were out here, and we went somewhere. And when we got home, we had a outdoor toilet on our walk into the house. The Lewis boys and Paul Giles, they were responsible, but it was funny. And then they put it over on the corner of 170 going into Wolfdale, and had a sign on it, something about Paul Giles. Paul and Lena Giles, there was a big two-story house on 170, and they lived there. And when I first met my husband, they were in Kansas, and him and his mother were living there. It's been torn down and a new big fancy house put there. But
what are some changes you've seen in the community over the years?
Oh, heavens. All the fast food and the big, well, we had a Marvin's grocery store that I liked. And now, neighborhood market. We've got a bigger fire department. And it's just growing so fast. All the housing additions, you can't, South Winds, that's big. And now some of them, I'm not sure, are out of Farmington, but all around, in fact, it's Clyde Carnes Road, right up goes off 170 up here. I think they're fixing to build about 150 houses just right on top of each other almost, just real close. And I don't know where everybody's coming from.
What else can you think of to talk about that maybe I didn't think to ask you about?
Like, think of anything.
Let me ask you this. If someone came to you and said, tell me about your town that you lived in called Farmington. What kind of a town is that like, and what would you tell them?
I would tell them it's a beautiful town with nice people, and you can never go wrong in living in Farmington.
Okay, good. One last thing. If I ask you to finish this sentence, how would you do it? My favorite thing about Farmington is...
Now the senior center is really my favorite thing about, and my church are the two most favorite things I have.